Hello, I am Mudita, and welcome back to Satisfactory, Update 1.2. In this save, I'm using a few of the new game modes that have just been added. I need 100 times the space elevator parts to complete each phase. Each machine takes 5 times the normal power. Each resource node is random, and so is the purity. This is making for a very different playthrough than I've ever done before. In the last video, I automated smart plating at a rate of 30 per minute. To help with the massive power requirement, I underclocked almost all the machines down to 10% or lower, meaning I needed over 800 machines, but I cut the power cost in half. That is 1 down and 2 space elevator parts to go. I need 100,000 of both smart plating and the versatile framework, and only 10,000 automated wiring. So today I'll be automating 36 versatile framework per minute. Surely I still have enough power available for all that, right? We're back in the space elevator. To help with the huge stockpile of smart plating I have, I added 2 more factory carts, so now I've got a total of 4. And now there's a nice steady stream of smart plating headed to the space elevator. As I mentioned in the last video, I have pretty much used all of the coal that's available here in the Grassy Fields. And for the versatile framework, which is today's project, I need more. Maybe a little bit hard to see them, but I've got a line of power towers that will take me out to the blue crater. As much as I do love the Explorer, traveling by power tower is free, and it's just a straighter line. The good old blue crater. As we can see over here by the geothermal, I think this is normally all sulfur, and now I've got iron and coal. Very different. It's really not the easiest place to see here in the dark, but let's just take a look at the map. So if we ping coal, alright, so those are the closest. Hopefully I don't need that one, but I probably will. Definitely going to be using these. I think there's another one just a little bit out of range here, and another one over here somewhere. There is most likely going to be plenty of iron. Yeah, not too worried about the iron. Since it's rainy and nighttime, let me go ahead and skip ahead and place a whole bunch of foundations, and then we'll go over the plan. I think this will be enough foundations, and we'll play it by ear. One thing I know is I'm going to need a lot of materials, so there's a good chance I'm probably even going to need to store up some more in here because this thing is going to need a lot. Let's take a look at the spreadsheet. I'm going to be making 36 versatile framework per minute. To help break things up instead of having the iron ingots all in just one recipe on one line, I have it split up to make things a lot easier because that's honestly how I'm going to place them. I need 864 steel ingots to make all of these steel beams. I did look at the molded steel beam recipe, but the fact that I have to make concrete and then I'm using a foundry instead of constructors, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it just wasn't worth it. But the solid steel ingot is a great recipe, and it helps bring down the cost. So I only need 576 iron and coal for that. I'll still need more iron for all of the screws and the iron plates, but that's pretty much it. Beams, screws, and iron plates will make my versatile framework. Now, if we look at the amount of machines I need, unfortunately, that is where this project gets expensive. If we take a quick look at the power, I'm sitting around anywhere from 95 to 9,800 megawatts, so just shy of 10,000. And I've got a little over 11.5. If I were to place all these machines at 100%, it would cost about 3,600 megawatts, which I clearly don't have. So I'm going to be crossing my fingers that I can place enough machines to bring that cost down. I'm going to start at the bottom of my spreadsheet, which is the steel. For that, it says I need 19.2 smelters, so I just need to move that decimal point over one. 192 is what I'm aiming for. Each of my smelter bricks have 18 in them. So that means I need to place 10 and 2/3. 12 would be an ideal number. Now, going 12 smelter stacks high is gonna be really tall. I can only fit 270 on a belt, so all of this needs to fit on at least 3 belts. Turns out, I need a lot of materials to do this. I brought out a ton of concrete to place all the foundations, but I should have done a little bit more planning ahead apparently. At least I have power towers, but this is the downside from building so far away and such an ambitious project. I'm gonna have to run back and forth a few times. And we are back. So let's go ahead and get our recipes set. I'm going to be placing 216 machines. So sometimes if it ends up being a somewhat easy number to work with, you can just type it in here. But the 2.67, I have a feeling that should be 2.667 repeating. So let's see if we do the math up here in the clock speed. Let's see if it changes. 576 divided by the 216 machines divided by the default rate of 30 multiplied by 100. There we go. Now we've got the repeating decimal point. Is this really going to make a huge difference? I don't know, but I know it's more accurate, and that just makes me feel better about it. Alright, so I'm going to give myself 3 foundations. I think that's going to be more than enough. And yeah, we'll just kind of leave a good amount of empty space right here. Because eventually I'm going to put a truck station out here and figure out a way to get these parts over to the space elevator. That's always been the plan. So we'll start out here. Since I need 12 of these, I am going to do 2 towers of 6. Now I've put together a few of these smelter towers, but the main difference with this one is going to be the initial split. So since I need so much of that iron ore coming in, like I said, I need it to be on at least 3 belts. Now if I made it one gigantic tower, that would have actually been a little bit easier to do it as 3 different belts, but as 2 towers, it's kind of a pain. So I'm going to do 4 belts total. So this first splitter is going to feed the first 3 towers. So we'll have a floor hole here and here. Actually, we can squeeze them both in here. With 4 belts, each one will have 144 on there. And then that will feed the first 3 towers. And then this one is going to end up going up to the halfway mark. And then I split that across those 3 towers. And now we just repeat it for these 3. And there we go. So now I just need to copy that over to the second tower, and I'll have all of the smelters done for the steel ingots anyways. I'll still need a few more towers, but let's go ahead and continue with the steel. These are going to feed into a set of foundries. Now for the foundries, I need 144, and each of these blueprints I have has 6 in them. So I need 24 blueprints. Thankfully, that's an easy number to deal with because I can do 2 towers of 12. They are only 2 floors, even though each floor is a little bit taller than these. So hopefully that won't be too ridiculously tall. Well, let's see. Finally time to spice things up and stop using so much gray. We're still going to use black pillars, but at least we've got some bright red floors. Just like the rest of the blueprints, very similar to the assemblers, I've already used a bunch. Each floor has 3 machines load balanced, and then the 2 floors are load balanced between these 2 splitters. So let's go ahead and set the recipe. And for this, it's nice and easy, because I was able to place exactly 10 times the amount that I need. I can just underclock them all to 10%. Each one will output 6, and we can double check. If I'm placing 144 times 6, 864, that's the exact amount I need. Perfect. Just like with the smart plating, since these towers are going to get kind of tall, I think I'm going to need the extra space for the load balancing, so I'm going to give myself 3 foundations as a gap. I'm definitely going to need to make a run and get some more parts here in a second. Well, I got 5 placed. Time to run back to the depot. And there's the first 6. So the tower is now half the height it needs to be. And of course, I get to the top. Last one, missing concrete. Well, I know I got more in that container. Ta-da! Wow. This is pretty tall. Granted, we didn't start on the lake. We're raised up a bit above that. This has gotten pretty high up here. Not ridiculous at all. Alright, so I'm going to do my connecting the power and laying all the foundations on my way down. And I will see you at the bottom. Alright, well, funny story time. And for those of you with a keen eye, you've probably been wondering, I built this blueprint in my creative save. And kind of forgot that I wouldn't have daisy chaining quite yet. Because the funny thing with the blueprints is you can build them in another save, move them over, and even if you don't have the parts or the technology unlocked, the blueprint will still let you place it as long as you have the materials. So clearly, I just placed all of those, and they are daisy chained together. So what I'm going to have to do is just redo these like I've done with all the rest of them. And I'm just going to have all of the power run up the corner. So the upside is it's a really quick and easy fix. Just delete a couple cables. The downside is once I get it resaved, I'm going to have to go through and replace all of these. It's still going to be a lot easier just to delete it and then replace it. Because once you've changed it, you can keep it the same name and everything. Save blueprint. And now, when I come over here, and if I delete this one, I can still copy this, even though that's the old one and it has the daisy chaining in it. Because I resaved it with the exact same name. When I copy it, it's going to be the new version. So thankfully, it's not the biggest mistake, and it's pretty easy just to replace these. But still a silly mistake. Thankfully, I realized that now, and not way later. So load balancing this huge tower is going to be interesting. Since I've got 12 of these blueprints, and I'm still creating so many, I think each of these towers is making like 280 something. So it's more than I can fit on one belt. The bottom half of these towers are going to get grouped together, and they're going to feed half of this, right? And then the top half will feed the top half over here. So if that incoming belt is only going to feed half, that means I need to load balance it across 6, which is going to need 2 sets of splitters. And besides the iron ingots, the other input is going to be coal. And that is going to have the same issue as this tower, where it's too much for one. So the coal is actually going to come in from down below, but it's going to come in on 2 belts. Alright, I got all my foundations in place. I'll make this a little bit easier. So for the floor holes, this is where it gets fun. So far when I had 2 inputs, I was only splitting them in half, and so it really wasn't too bad. But as you can see, things are about to get a little bit complicated if I want to use both inputs for both of the splitters. Mainly this one right here. So the easy ones hook up here and here, because this first splitter is going to go to 3 different floors. So that'll feed the bottom floor, and then normally we would just have these 2, and there you go. But I need that splitter to feed 3 floors. Well, one of these is easy, because with this one, I can have that go, okay, so it's the next quarter of a foundation there. Alright, but for this one, I'm really not crazy about having it clip straight through a splitter. It just doesn't feel right. I also don't have the most confidence that things just won't randomly screw up in the game. So what we're going to do is extend this, and we are just going to grab a half foundation. And we're going to give myself a little bit more space to work with. And so this is going to go all the way out here. And I'm going to bring it down to the floor. And we'll just use a belt to go through there. And thankfully, since I'm only splitting it across 6 floors, these 2 only need to get split in half. This half will feed these 3, And then the other half is going to go all the way up to the third floor. So this is the second, there's the third. Actually, I'm sorry, it's going to go to the fourth floor, and then it's going to repeat this whole process. So let's just go up floor by floor, and we'll do the first half. And this right here will be the incoming coal. Alright, and now, once we get up to here, we kind of have to go in a particular order. Since this is right in front of this splitter, it kind of has to go first. Even though I normally start with the ones on the left, this pretty much means that I have to go with that one first. But from the ladder, it makes it really hard if I don't put this one in. Put that one in first, then this one. There we go. And now these ones will go up to the next floor. And the other two are going to keep going until we're out of these ones. And floor 3. And now we're going to repeat what we had on the very first floor, except for I just need the one set of splitters. So these are going to feed the next 3 floors. So I'll need a floor hole here, here, we skipped that one, and here, and here. It's a little chaotic, but hey, it works. And now we do the right side, and then the center one. And then here is the 6th floor. And there we go, that's half the tower. And really, this tower, as far as the inputs go, are basically just 2 of these halves. And then I need to double that, and I just need another whole one of these towers right here. So like I said, half of this tower will then cut across, and then it's going to feed, well, I guess specifically this tower. Half of it will get grouped up and feed into the very bottom. And then the other half of the ingots are going to get grouped up and plug into this part. And then we're going to do the same thing all over again. So it is huge, and it's a lot of belt work. But once you break it down into the smallest sections, it's not too bad. It's just, 144 foundries, that's all. The other reason why all of this is spread out so much is the final product is going to be 864 steel ingots. So that's still going to fit on 4 belts, thankfully. So the same way where half of this tower is kind of one piece, the same bottom half of the towers are going to get grouped together and go on to the next step. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the top half. I could have made them shorter and done 4 different towers, but there really isn't a huge difference besides them just getting really tall. Now I need constructors to turn all of these steel ingots into the steel beams. Referencing the spreadsheet again, I need the same amount of constructors, 144. And I guess what I could do is just kind of extend this tower, erase all of this, and just add a constructor in front of each one of these. But I don't really want to do that. I think that's going to be a little bit messy. We're just going to keep with the same thing I've been doing. Add some more towers. Constructors are going to be blue this time. And again, I'm able to just downclock these to 10% since I'm placing exactly 10 times the amount I would normally need. But it's always good to double check. So this is going to output 1.5 per machine. 1.5 times the 144. That gives me 216, which is the amount of beams I need. Because this blueprint has 12, whereas the Foundries had 6, I get to place half as many of the actual blueprints. And it'll still give me the same number of machines. This tower needs 12. This one only needs 6. Doing this is going to be pretty easy. So like I just said, half of this tower will get grouped together, which means I'm just going to need 1 splitter in front here. This will feed the bottom 3 towers, And then the top half of that one will feed the top half of this one. Although I'll probably do it in reverse, where I put the splitter on the very top floor and it'll feed down, just because that tower is just so tall. But that's pretty easy. Let's talk about the other towers that are down here. I need a few more smelter towers. More iron. Right after the steel beams, I want to do screws. So that is what's going to feed into there. I need 2 sets of screws. So this first set, I'm going to need 112.5 ingots. I need 37-ish. So I could place just 2 of the blueprints and that would get me to 36. But honestly, placing 3 is really easy. So we'll just do that. 54 machines, default rate of 30. All right, nice random number. We had our 2 that are feeding the steel. And so this is going to be the next up. Just enough material to finish this tower. Let me grab a few more materials and we'll finish the smelters. Now I've got plenty of materials, at least for the smelter towers. So let's get these ones done. The next one over I want to do is the plates, just so I don't confuse one set of screws with the other. We'll do plates and then screws last. So for the iron plates, I would normally need 8.1. So we're shooting for 81. So I'm looking at 4.5 of my smelter towers. So let's just round up to the next best number, which would be 6. 108 machines. So the math for that is 243 ingots across 108 machines. Default rate of 30. Multiplied by 100. 7.5%. Those numbers aren't bad looking. Now I just need 6 of these. And that's another tower down. And it looks like I'm running out of room. I was hoping not to have to kill too many of these, but in case you didn't know, even these giant ones, you can get rid of. Last set of smelters, this is for another set of screws. Normally I would need 4.2, so at 42 I'm looking at 3. That's 126 ingots across 54 machines. And we're back to the repeating numbers. Surprise, surprise. And just 3 of these. That is all of the smelter towers in, and then half of the foundries and half of the constructors. I need to grab a few more materials for all of those. And I think this is a good time for me to skip ahead and do a little bit of the belt work. Now I've got lifts. And some power. It's a good way to make sure that I actually have everything connected. So for these first towers, like so, we've got 2 incoming belts for each of them. I added some signage in front just to help me out. I never regret adding signs like this. In fact, I almost always wish I added more. So each of those belts will have 144, and so one of them goes halfway up. And then they just split across the 3. The other towers are very simple. We've done plenty of those. The Foundries is definitely where it starts to look a little bit crazier. So here we have the second half of the ingots being plugged into the second half. Now I probably should have merged them up and it would have been a little bit easier. Instead I went down and then brought that back up. It just makes it look busier. It's just more stuff moving around. And then same thing on the opposite side. So with that same level, basically, we merge that, and then that feeds this top half. And then that one, it goes down. It's just a lot of machines, but really it wasn't that bad. Unfortunately, it took so long that now it's nighttime, which isn't really the best for showing off building. But the next part is pretty simple, so we can just skip ahead again. I need 3 constructor towers, so I'm going to use my blue towers, load them up in the blueprint designer, change the recipes. So like I said, this first tower is going to be cast screws. The second one is going to lead into iron plates. And the third one is going to be more cast screws. Alright, well, apparently those needed to be kind of tall too. Thankfully, all of the incoming amounts fit on one belt. So that way I didn't have to split the towers into 2 halves like I did with the steel. I just had to load balance it across 8 towers, which meant I need 3 splitters. So the very first one splits it all the way in half, so that goes halfway up the tower to that point. The second one does the quarter, and that the very last one does the eighth. And then you can just kind of see the pattern go back and forth until you load balance it across all 8. But after the shenanigans with the Foundries and having to use all 3 outputs with the splitters, only dealing with 1 input with Constructors and then just splitting it in half, this just felt super easy. But just in case anybody is wondering, this is what the clock speeds ended up being. The first set of cast screws are clocked to 9.375. The iron plates, 8.4375. And for the last set, it was close enough. I could have placed 9 to bring it under the 10%, but I decided to keep all the towers just the same height. 8 blueprints was good enough for this step. Now we move on to the assemblers. The first step is going to be combining the plates and these screws. Alright, I've used a lot of color. We're still going to sandwich this with gray and black, I'm sorry. Can't go too crazy. I'll be using the bolted iron plate. I'm looking to use about 18 assemblers. And since my blueprints are in sets of 6, this could be really easy. I could underclock these to 10% and just place 3 of the blueprints, and it would probably be way easier that way. But as you can tell, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to make up for the fact that those constructors are just over the 10%, and I'm going to use 4 blueprints, so 24. So to work that out, I need 27 assemblers. I'm going to be using 24 machines. The default rate is 15. Multiply that by 100. 7.5%. Alright, so that'll definitely help. I think it's going to make a bigger difference with the assemblers since they just use so much more power by default. It's a good thing I double checked my numbers. I almost paired these up with the wrong 2 towers. And I even separated the screws, so I didn't do that. I knew it needed the iron plates, but it's actually going to use this set of screws. So this set of screws, this set of plates are going to go into this tower here. I just need 4 of these. Okay, I'll be honest. Part of the reason is, after doing the Foundries, splitting these in half is just so much easier than using all 3 outputs. So if I've got 4 of these towers, I just need 2 splitters. So the first ones will split it in half, and those will go halfway up. The second one will feed this first floor and the second floor. And I do the same thing on the other side for the other set. After all these other towers, 4 blueprints was just nice and quick and easy. Now the one difference that I forgot about was that the screws are going to need to get put on 2 belts. I have 450 screws in total, so each belt will have 225. So the top half of this blueprint get grouped together and then they merge down. And then when they come over to this tower, they plug into the top and they'll feed the top 2. And then the bottom half of the tower gets fed in just from the 1 splitter down here instead of the 2 that I had originally placed. The iron plates, however, fit all on 1 belt, so those get to get load balanced across all 4. And now we're on to the bolted frame. For this, I am going to underclock them just to the 10% because I need 36 machines, and 6 is a pretty convenient number to work with, so we're going to go with that. It also means I'm going to have to do more of those shenanigans like I did with the Foundries. Now the modular frame tower is just going to get lined up right next to here. So the inputs for this tower are going to be this. The output of this tower, which will be the reinforced iron plates, so that will snake around into the back. And then I need the output of this tower. So same thing as those other ones, I have to split the screws onto 2 halves. The bottom half will feed these first 3. And then the top half of the screw tower will feed the next 3. Right, so it makes the most sense for this one to be the reinforced iron plates. So those are going to get plugged in from over here. Just need to group up those 4 blueprints, and then that'll plug into here. And for the screws, we just need 1. Because then we'll put 1 on the very top tower. And when I split that, it'll just go down. Which might make things a little bit interesting. Alright, so we've got all the floor holes. I think that should be all of them. Let's see. Terrific. And again, we gotta start with that side, or else I'm gonna deal with some crazy clipping. Alright, so obviously this one's going to go here. But now I kind of need to figure out how I'm going to do the screws. So let's go to the very top. Alright, so the screws are going to get plugged into here. We need a splitter up here. And these are going to feed down. So let's see here, and then this is where camera mode is great. I can kind of take a look. Well, now this is an interesting jigsaw puzzle. Trying to get it so there won't be any clipping. Normally when they're both going the same direction, it's a lot easier to deal with. But now that I have one splitter feeding down and then the other one's feeding up, give me a second. My solution was to just give myself more space. Surprise, surprise. I just added on another half foundation, and then that way I could have that one come out and then miss that one. And then it had to go all the way around, and yeah, not the prettiest looking belt work I've ever done, but there's no clipping, which is usually the main goal for me. So now the top half of that tower gets brought down to here, and then just needs to bridge that gap over to this side. Same thing with the other assembler tower, it's just a little bit shorter. So that half needed to come down a little bit farther. The reinforced iron plates just get grouped together all the way down to the bottom floor and then just head their way onto this one. So now all 6 blueprints are combined and we've got my 18 modular frames coming out of this one. Now that I've got my 18 modular frames and out of these 2 towers, we've got a total of 216 steel beams. I can put together the versatile framework. It's time for another assembler tower. Versatile framework. Looking at the spreadsheet, it says 7.2. 72 machines. Well, hey, that is a really convenient number. Each blueprint has 6, so I just need 12 blueprints. So that means I can place the exact amount that I need. I can just underclock this to 10% again. Gotta love it when it's nice and easy. Well, since all of the steel beams, thankfully those can get grouped together into one belt, so that part will be easy. But they do need to be on the 2 belts, so it makes the most sense to just do this in 2 towers. So now I just need 2 towers of 6. Decently tall, but I think this is half the height of the Foundries. They do look cool though. The 2 towers are in. Now I just need to do a little bit of belt work. You've pretty much seen me do everything I need to do right here. Thankfully, this is even easier than the ones I've been doing because I don't need to deal with the split towers and having 2 incoming belts. All of this is just going to get fed in right from here. The main difference is that all of the steel beams will get grouped together for each of the towers. And then they get to just plug straight in, right? So for the beams, those just plug in. But for the modular frames, those are going to get one more splitter. And then those are going to plug in right to here. So those will have to come from that tower. They'll just come along over here and then plug into right here. Something like that. Well, now since it's nighttime and I'm dealing with my pitch black foundations, I think we can go ahead and just skip ahead. You've seen me do a few of these already. And here we go. Just a few more lifts. Like I said, the modular frames just come out of here. We just go up and over these belts and plug into that splitter. That splits all of them into the 2 different towers, and then they get load balanced between all the different floors across all 72 assemblers. Compared to the 192 I did for smart plating, the last step of this really wasn't bad at all. Never noticed the little streams coming off the parachute. That's cool. All of the parts get grouped up to the very bottom, and then one last merger to group up the 2 towers. And for right now, I've just got 3 storage containers. That, surprisingly enough, doesn't buy me as much time as I would think. Each of these storage containers have 48 slots. The versatile framework stacks to 50, so they can hold 2,400, and I'm going to be making 36 a minute. So each one of these only gives me a little over an hour, but I figured 3 hours is plenty of time to figure out how to get these transported from here all the way over to the space elevator. And if not, I could always add another storage container or 2. But before I get to that, we've got a few more things to take care of. I've got all the machines set up, they're all connected to power. Now I need to wrangle some resources. There's an iron node there that I'll probably need. We've got the coal node that is right here by the geothermal. We've got another coal node that is kind of hidden, but it's right there. We won't be able to see it, but there is another coal node in those caves that normally has crude oil. Yeah, well, this time around, it's a coal node. So with a lot of these, and since I've got my labels, makes it a little bit easier. So for ones like this down here, the 112.5, I am not going to deal with load balancing that. Even though I could combine that amount with one of the other towers and figure out some crazy load balancer to split that, I'm just not going to. I'm just going to clock one of the miners to 112.5 and just plug that straight into this tower. And I think I'm going to do that with all 3 of these towers. There's enough iron out here. I don't need to make things more complicated, and chances are it'll probably be better on my power grid. So for this, I'm most likely going to need a belt balancer. Something like this. Let me show you how to build one real quick. I have a video dedicated to this, but I'm just going to give you the quick crash course. I'm going to have 3 incoming belts, and I want them split evenly across 4. So the easiest way to think about that is each of the incoming belts need to get split into 4, and then you just need to group up 1 from each of those splits. I probably made that more confusing than it needed to be. So we're going to start with a splitter. Now normally you would just stack 3 tall, but unfortunately that's not how the vertical splitters work. For this, we're going to lock it in place and we're going to nudge by 1 meter. So now it's a 3 meter gap instead of 2 meters in between these. And then I'm going to lock that in place and merge it up. This will make more sense in just a second. Alright, so now I've got my 3 splitters, and that's where the 3 incoming belts are going to plug in. And now I need to split each of these 4 ways. So now I just want to line these up on the same line. And I think that's enough of a gap. Would be good, actually. Alright, so now we're going to do the same thing. So now I lock it in place, nudge it up, lock it in place, nudge it up. And so these are going to get connected. This is often one of the few times where, just to make sure everything works smoothly and I just don't have to worry about figuring out what the belt speed is supposed to be, I just use my highest speed belts on these belt balancers. Makes everything flow through there nice and quick. Okay, so now the incoming belts are plugging into here. Now we've split them in half. So now we just need to split them in half again. So this is where we want to merge them all up. So to start, we're going to plug it into the very bottom one. And then we're going to lift this up. And we're going to make sure that we're above this merger. And preferably by a few meters, just to make it easy on yourself. And you can go ahead and do that to the bottom one of this one. Same thing. But now, I want to put one right here next to this one. Make sure you have enough room to make that 90-degree turn. And I'm going to do the same thing. And then one last one right here. Now, when I grab my merger, now I can place it on top of here. So what I want to do is hold control, and now it'll snap in line with this one. And since there's really no space at all, and you can't lock them on here, which is a real bummer. I wish I could lock the hologram so I could at least walk around. They really don't like it. But that's okay. So hold control, it'll snap there, and then we do that one more time for the top one. And we're going to do that for all of these. Using the filter tool so I don't accidentally delete something. I can just delete all of these. I like to just delete them and leave it open because that way this is all going to get placed underneath here. I'm going to place some more foundations and we'll do all of that kind of load balancing underneath. So once I place it, then I'll know where the ceiling is and I can make these as tall as I want. Or you can kind of flip things around and have them feed down, but then you're going to have to lift all of this up by a few meters. But you've got plenty of options. You can do this in a bunch of different ways. So that's my crash course on using the vertical mergers and building a belt balancer. Give me a second while I wrangle up some ore and I'll show you where this is going to go. As it turns out, for this factory, I needed quite a few nodes. Let's go through them. All right, let's just start with these close ones. So first off, we've got one coal node here. And because this one's an impure, it's only overclocked to 160, so we're getting 96 out of this one. And then we've got two iron nodes. This one is also 96. And then the other one is overclocked to 240. And then as you can see, there's two more belts coming from back here. So one of them isn't too far. Right up here, we have another node. This one is my 112.5. This is just going straight into the tower that's leading into the cast screws. The other node is coming from back here. This one needed to go on a little bit more of a journey. So normally this little spot down here has a bunch of quartz. Well, not this time. Now we've got sulfur, and I believe this is coal. Yep, here I'm getting another 240. The two 240s plus the 96 gives me the 576 that I need for the steel. All of the belts from this side of the blue crater are all getting grouped up right here. They head down here, and then I was able to kind of sort them out to where they needed to go. So that one belt needs to go straight over to the one tower. Then the rest of them needed to go underneath, but ran out of space, so that's why they needed to come out a little bit farther and then drop down. And then I've got my two belt balancers. So these are both taking the three either iron or coal belts and splitting them into the four equal belts. But that's not actually all the nodes, because that was only one of the 240s for coal. The other 240 is coming from right over here. We've got that coal making its way over to the factory from over there. And then we've got another iron node, actually two iron nodes, right down here. The first one is another one that's overclocked to 240. I think for iron I actually needed three. Two of them plus the 96 go to the steel, and then the other one just goes straight to iron plates. And then here's the 126 that I need for the other cast screw tower. And then the very last one I need is coming from out here. I was just slightly off. It's 243 that I need for the iron plates instead of 240. Just need that one power shard for those three. But the power shards are one thing I'm really not too worried about in this save. I don't think I'm going to get to use a whole lot of them outside of miners and a few other things. But placing all of these miners has made me realize, especially with overclocking pretty much all of them, it's going to be really expensive just for the miner portion. I have a habit of just completely overlooking the cost of the miners. And in a normal playthrough, I think you really can. They do add up, obviously. But especially since they're kind of a necessary evil, you kind of need to turn them on. I just kind of don't think about them. But at this save, at least early on, I really should pay more attention. It's amazing how much the underclocking is going to bring this down, but this number definitely scares me. And looking at my normal power grid, I think I could turn on just the factory, but considering how many miners I have to turn on, I think that's going to push me over the edge. It's finally time for what so many of you have been waiting for. I think I finally need to unlock geothermal. Now, I'll be completely honest, a big reason why I haven't added them yet is just a total brain fart. When I saw this going through the different things I wanted to unlock, I saw plastic and then just off the top of my head just assumed, well, that means they must need plastic. I know what the recipes are for these, and I just didn't think about it. Don't actually need plastic to craft them. You just needed to unlock them. And I happen to have enough plastic. I have 13 already saved up, so that's nice. Now you do need plastic to craft the circuit board, so I can't actually craft any more of these. But I've picked up 244 at crash sites. And since it's a 1-to-1, I can't sloop this because I don't have manufacturers unlocked yet. But at least I can craft quite a few, although I definitely don't have that much quick wire, so I think it would be best for me to just run back real quick. Oh, looks like I came back just in time to turn this on. Thankfully, this little setup, being so underclocked, doesn't actually use too much power. And I'm probably going to need this quick wire. Well, time for some good old manual crafting. Alright, well that took longer than I would have liked. I really wish that I'd turned that quick wire back on sooner. But I've got my high-speed connectors. Give me that sweet free power.
When life gives you deadly geothermal vents, run directly towards them and build generators. Use potentially lethal natural phenomena for your own benefit. It's the Fix-It way.
Alright. There's the first one. And there's actually two over here. Here we go. Let's see, what do we get out of this one? 2 to 600, so it'll average to 400. I will gladly take that. And what do we get out of this one? Oh, same thing. All right. Hey, that's quite a bit. Just bring a tower down from here. Now you can see my production has a little bit of a roller coaster. Doesn't actually dip down as far as I thought, but it's not a solid line. Now I think there is a way to offset them if you place the second one just the right amount of time after the first one. When one's at the high point, the other one's at the low point, and then they kind of keep swapping back. And then that way you'll get a really consistent amount out of both of them. But that's a lot of work, and I don't really want to rely on that. So what we're gonna do instead, build a few batteries. I don't need a ton, and honestly, these are probably even going to be temporary. I'm definitely going to add more in a more permanent spot, but for now, this will definitely help level up the power. The nice thing about this is obviously I want to give them a few minutes to charge up, but ultimately I don't need to let them charge up to 100% because the chances of my whole power grid being completely even is so astronomically low. It's going to either be charging or dissipating. It may be a really, really small amount, but there's pretty much no way that I'm going to be at net zero. So once this charges up a little bit, then I'll be able to turn on the factory, and then we'll be able to see either I have enough power or I don't. But one thing I want to do, because I know the way this game works, I need to go back to the main factory, and I need to disconnect all of my biomass. Because if the biomass is connected, the batteries won't get used. It's going to go through all of my biomass before it ever touches my extra battery power. And I would rather not just needlessly go through my biomass. If the batteries can handle the fluctuations, then I would much rather just do it that way. Oh yeah, I also decided to unlock the switch. I should probably implement it in a lot more places, and I need to unlock the priority power switch. That is going to be way more valuable than just the normal one. But for right now, I've just got the normal ones, and it is turned off, but if I ever need to, I've basically got an emergency stash of biomass. As you can see, it looks a bit different than it used to be. I decided to completely clean this up. I deleted everything. Same with all the ones over there. Now there's just a whole bunch of empty poles that I need to clean up. And I turned it into this. Like I said, I'm not too worried about power shards, so I thought this would be a really good use for it. Instead of having to place 15, I could place 6 that are fully overclocked, and that's the same. So I've just got a blueprint where it's a storage container, which I think these are all almost completely full. And then that just gets load balanced across the 6 biomass burners. All of the biomass burners that were over here, which I think was the full 15, and then there were another 12 over there, they're basically all replaced with just these 2 blueprints. And just because I wanted to make sure that I still have a way to process the biomass, just in case. Now the leaves and the wood setup are over here, and then they both have their own constructor, and everything clocked at the right speeds. So everything runs a lot smoother over here now. The constructors are all attached to the main power grid because I want those to be able to run no matter what. That way I have the biomass available. But right now this switch is just going to be turned off. And that way, if I do go over my consumption, it's going to use the batteries and not the biomass. Oh, I love that you can see that monstrosity from the distance. The blue and the red really help it stand out. Let me head back over there and we'll get this thing started. The batteries are a good amount charged and more than enough to get this whole thing going. I'll probably come back and upgrade this to a priority power switch, and thankfully the power switches I believe are just like the mergers and splitters, which if you didn't know is always a good tip to show every once in a while. If you accidentally place a merger but you need it to be a splitter, you don't need to delete it. If you just hold control, you can actually swap in between any of these. I can make it a smart splitter, I can switch it back to a merger. So as long as you have it facing the right direction, you can easily swap between them. Now you do need to make sure that there aren't like extra connections, or else you'll only be able to switch between, splitter and smart splitter, or merger and priority merger. But it's a helpful little thing that even I forget about all the time and delete things when I don't need to. Alright, let's cross our fingers and hope my power grid holds. And here we go. Finally, the first versatile framework. While this is still warming up, let's take a look at the power. Things haven't crashed yet, so that's a good sign. And there goes the batteries. Well, it stayed on battery for a little bit, but there is enough power to charge them back up to 100%. So, things are looking good so far. Now, I need to figure out how to get these from here to over there. The space in front here has plenty of empty room for a truck station. Then, I'll place a ramp from here up to about here. Now, there are plenty of natural roads, and I could even make it from here all the way to the space elevator. I have built right on top of some, but I could work around that. I think with it being so far, it's going to be a whole lot easier to build a temporary cart road above all the vegetation. I really like the new vehicle path system. This is connecting the last bit of the road, which I decided to just ramp into the ground, to the space elevator, and now turning it into a little intersection. So this is going to be fun to see how they work, and it'll be great to know for in the future when factories are actually relying on it and not just dropping things off at the space elevator. I did actually talk my way through this whole thing, but I completely forgot to unmute my mic. But really, I just wanted to show laying down some more of the vehicle path. Doing all of this is just so much easier. It does get a little bit tricky if you're using the straight mode on the actual terrain. It's fantastic on foundations. It gets a little wonky when you're using it on the dirt roads. Other than that, they are super easy to use. And here's the new truck station. I've built up a few versatile framework, and so they are being loaded in right now. Since the rest of the road is asphalt, might as well make the ramp asphalt too. So that is just going to come up here, and well, let's just place a cart or two and go for a little ride. Okay, so the path is right here on the middle. So that should make it easy to place these. Pick up to drop off. Just by looking at this, it thinks it's going to be almost 4 minutes. So you know what? I think we're going to need quite a few. This is number 6, so let's just go ahead and start there. And let's take this one for a little ride. Now I've completely automated the versatile framework, and they're being sent to the space elevator. Oh, that feels good. At least that is finally started. It's going to take a very long time to finish, but you got to start somewhere. The thing I love about the factory carts is they don't need any fuel. How much does this thing use? Yeah, 100 megawatts. So the truck station will actually only use the 100 megawatts when it's doing a docking animation with one of the carts. So I did just increase how much that is going to go off by quite a bit. It charged for a second. I'm not going to lie, I don't love that it never completely fully recharged there. That leads me back to over here. This little area down here that I'm getting my coal from. There's also a couple more cool things about this spot. Besides having some sulfur now, we keep coming back here. There's another geothermal. And this is a normal. I wish it were pure, but it's better than nothing. Crafted up just enough high-speed connectors. And I'm hoping that this will just give it that extra little bit that I need, that more often than not, that this will fully charge. Oh, it did it. It finally went back to fully charged on the batteries. Oh, that makes me feel good. And it's even staying there for more than a second. Oh, that's even better. Oh, it's a good day. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for being here. I now have 36 versatile framework headed to the space elevator. I finally added geothermal power and a few power storages. Thankfully, I have just enough power for all of this, and the batteries are definitely saving me. I'm obviously going to need to create some more power before I can automate this last space elevator part. At least I have the two big ones going, and I only need 1/10 as much for this last one. That buys me a good amount of time to sort this power out. So look forward to that, and thanks for watching.